Oh, here we go. Governor Christie, good morning.
Good morning, Jim. Eric, how are you?
Well, we're fine, thank you.
Good. Well, thanks for having me come on this morning. Today's a day where we're going to finally, I think, try to make sure that folks in New Jersey get some tax relief. You know, we've been banging this drum since January of 2012. And I've tried, I think the example I want to set this morning is I continue to try to compromise with Democrats, taking them at their word that they really do want to be able to cut taxes for folks. And so, essentially the plan is this, that if you make $400,000 or less in New Jersey, you will get a 10% credit towards your property taxes up to $10,000. So it'll be up to a $1,000 credit, be phased in over 4 years. And also we would increase the earned income tax credit for working class folks, the working poor, they're called sometimes. The folks who need the earned income tax credit from 20 to 25%. So everybody who works and makes up to $400,000 a year would be getting a tax cut under this plan. And as you probably both remember, the big excuse for not doing this before was they weren't sure if we had the revenue.
Yeah.
Well, you see now that 4 months in a row we've exceeded our projections on revenues, and the economy's really starting to come back here in New Jersey. And so, but to try to take away the last pretext, last excuse for doing this, I've said this. I put in the conditional veto that I've sent back to them today, this provision. If they don't believe their revenue's there to support it, they can pass a concurrent resolution from the Assembly and the Senate, which does not need my signature, stopping the tax cut at any time.
Well, doesn't that bring us right back where we are now, though, that they would have control over whether or not they think the money's there?
Well, it does, Jim, although what it would do, if they vote the tax cut in, then they have to take the affirmative step of stopping it. And they have to get a majority vote, 41 and 21 in both houses, to be able to do it. And listen, this is not my preference to run government this way, but what my bigger preference is to get people some tax relief. And listen, do I believe this is really why they're not cutting taxes? No. I think for many of them, not all of them, but for many of them, they just don't want to cut taxes because they want bigger government. But the fact is, if that's really the issue, if you're concerned that somehow the legislature will be more responsible about cutting taxes, then this provision allows them to stop a tax cut if they want to stop a tax cut. But the fact is, in the meantime, people will start to get their taxes cut, and I believe their excuse won't be there because revenues will continue to grow in New Jersey as the economy continues to expand.
Is this based on revenue projections, or would this be based on actual tax collections?
Well, Eric, in part that would be up to them because the view is at some point, and my guess would be that it would normally happen right around the time of the adoption of the budget when we know exactly what revenues are. And if they want to stop a tax cut, they can. Remember, the tax cut becomes effective January 1st of every year over the succeeding 4 years. And so I think there would be a vigorous debate about it. But on the other hand, I think that this way we get the tax cut ball moving. What I'm trying to do here, Jim and Eric, very clearly, is to strip away all the pretext of saying you can't afford a tax cut. Because let's remember something. The money is the people's in the first place. So this idea that you can't afford it, I've told people all along that I would pay for my tax cut by cutting spending. And we've shown we can do that in New Jersey. I mean, this year, my budget is still smaller. Remember this now. My budget that I proposed for fiscal year 14 is still smaller than what John Corzine spent in 2008.
Do you have any indication from the other side, the Democrats, that they might look more favorably upon this than the proposal from last year?
Well, Jim, I'm hopeful, and I will tell you this. I don't know what their answer could be now. If the only excuse they've had for the last year and a half has been that, well, we're not sure revenues are going to be there. Mm-hmm. Well, now, if it turns out that they're not, then you can stop it, and you don't even need my permission. Well, what's the excuse now? They don't trust themselves? I mean, this is something that they're going to need to do, and they're going to need to answer to the people of the state for this if they don't do it, because this now provides them with the opportunity to both institute a tax cut with my signature, but stop a tax cut without my signature. And so this is now up to them. I think the people will now know whether they're really serious about cutting taxes or whether they have been deceiving them all along.
Well, you've said that you talk to Senate President Sweeney on a regular basis. Have you had a conversation with him about what you're sending back to the legislature today?
Well, I gave him a heads up over the weekend as to what I was going to be doing.
Do you think this will become ultimately a campaign issue as the legislature is up for re-election as you are?
Well, I assume that it'll be a subject of campaign discussion if they don't pass it.
This would make it rather interesting in the race for the legislature. All 120 seats are up. So for the taxpayer, it would be to their advantage under your plan to have a Republican legislature.
Well, sure.
Because they would have the ultimate say over whether this goes or not.
Well, sure. But what I'm trying, Jim, you're absolutely right. But also what I would say to you is, there are Democrats in the legislature that have shown they're willing to do things in a bipartisan way. And so let's do that. Let's Republicans get together with a group of Democrats who want to reduce taxes here in New Jersey. Today's tax day. The fact is everybody's feeling it today about what we're trying to, what we're doing here in New Jersey and what's been done over the last decade before I became governor on taxes. People still feeling it, and I want to try to start to roll that back as the economy begins to grow here, as it has. And the evidence is indisputable that it has. All the folks, you remember, all the Democrats who were cheering when we weren't making our budget projections in the first 4 months of the year. They've been very quiet the next 4 months of the year, haven't they?
So if this plan flies, and with the CV that you're sending back today, when would this take effect? Would it take effect this year or the following year?
No, it would take effect beginning January 1st of 2013. So it would go back to January 1st of this year, and then people would see their first credit a year from today.
Okay.
Governor, thank you very much.
Guys, thank you. I appreciate it. And listen, I think the discussion among New Jerseyans has to be this. We're now offering tax cuts for middle-class and working-class New Jerseyans. We've now addressed every issue that the Democrats in the legislature put up. And now the question is, are they going to be standing up for the taxpayers in this state and cutting their taxes, or are they going to continue to try to grow the size of government? The folks in this state know I will not permit government to grow bigger. And so the question is, why can't we return some of this money to the people who paid it in the first place?
So it's 10% over 4 years credit, up to $10,000 of your property tax. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Jim. Eric, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.